So thank you. Changing up a little bit how we're going to kick things off. Obviously, we have a picture of students in our building, and I was listening to Shapri Pelletier talk, and talking about, and I really respect the compliments to the district, the challenges to the district. But I heard in her voice and talking about her children, that feeling of students coming to school and the fear that students can have. Today we're presenting on data. And at the end of the day, after everything that our students have been going through over the past few years into recent events, they still have to walk through our doors every single day, and they have to focus on being really good students. And that's a lot of weight to hold on their shoulders. So I'd like to kick off with just giving a compliment to our students, a compliment to our families for persevering as best they can and doing what they can in a very, very trying time. We place these pictures up here because that's what it's about. It's about our students. It's about our students' success. We want to see smiling faces. We want our kids to be able to walk through those doors and focus on learning. There's a lot of challenges in front of them right now. So we'll present on our data tonight, but I had to say that on the front side because those words really hit a chord with me. And we always, as a staff, as an administrative team, want to make sure that we are putting a hyper focus on student safety so that they can come to school and put a focus on learning. So with that being said, I want to thank some other individuals, obviously our Board of Education, for giving us this opportunity tonight. You've been going through a lot as well. So thank you to you, thank you to our superintendent, thank you to our assistant superintendent, and to our learning services team. I want to thank our team of educators here tonight that are going to be presenting. Our Associate Principal, Jen Teal, Jennifer Ostheimer, our learning specialist, Carey, our interventionist, best of the best. Individuals that are dedicating their time not to only working with students in front of them on a daily basis, but also making sure that we're really digging into data, that we're really taking the time to understand our students and to understand the areas that we need growth in while we still continue to build out our areas of strength. I wanted to also thank our teachers for their commitment and time on a daily basis to building out the great work that we do. At BHMS, as well as other schools across the district, we've built our school goals into professional growth plans. So they are taking this to heart. They are making our goals, which are aligned to the district goals, a part of their professional growth plan. I would also like to thank Carey Crocker and Susan Golub, constantly working with us, constantly pushing us to think about the data cultures inside of our building and how we can further look at the ways that we can enhance student success. A couple other thank yous, East Hills and West Hills. I think you know how closely we work as a collaborative middle school team. The great work that I believe is happening at BHMS, I know is happening at the other middle schools as well, so thank you to them. As we look at tonight, we're going to be looking at our main goals of improving math skills, reading skills, and social emotional learning. And we're going to do that through a mindset of gather, study, plan, do. It's a process that we've been looking at consistently over several years and making sure that it's a theme of the work that we do in professional development and any of the work that we do individually as a staff. So I'm going to move us right into data. So you're going to see on some of these slides that there is a great deal of areas that just say not available. And we want to speak to that on the front side of this. From 2016-17 to 2018-19, that is probably the best trend data that you're going to be able to see, because as we moved into the 19-20 school year, that was a year of starting into the pandemic and not having our MSTEP scores across the board. So you're going to see that there are some areas that we just simply don't have data. The formula used through my school data through MSTEP did not disaggregate data in certain subgroups. Some of that is just based on student population too and the amount of students taking the test. So unfortunately, there is a lot of information that we couldn't gather, but you will see after looking at a reading 5-year average, so this is focused predominantly on reading, you are going to see that we are starting to build out trend data again. If we take the first 3 years, 16, 17 to 18, 19, if we look at all students and you average that out, we're at about 69%. Give our students and our staff a lot of credit through a lot of hard work, hybrid learning, virtual learning, in-person learning, AM learning, PM learning. Throughout all of that, we found ourselves still moving up a couple percentage points in reading. As we look into the next slide, we wanted to share with you the other instruments that we use for gathering data. We don't want to use MSTEP as the only indicator, so we've looked at NWEA, Fontes and Pinnell, FastBridge. I'd like to share that Fontes and Pinnell is probably giving us the best information on student data simply because it's a one-on-one assessment. But as you may know, that is for our elementary students, so for our building, that is 5th grade. As we start to look at FastBridge, that data can be pulled 5th grade through 8th grade, but this is a time frame, again, where you're going to see a lot of fluctuation in data because some of these tests were taken virtually, some of these were taken at home, at school during hybrid learning. Even though we have had these various data sources and the disruptions in learning, we are still seeing either being on pace with our learning targets or we're slightly moving up percentage point-wise. So we want to talk a little bit about our goal areas. The first goal area in reading is, and I'll just read it, identifying, naming, and determining the impact of figurative language on overall text meaning. What I've been really impressed with our staff is consistently looking at the areas of growth. What are we doing well? We can't forget about that. We got to keep moving forward with it and make sure that students are still focusing on that and improving in that work. But where are the areas that our kids are struggling? When we look at these assessments, standardized assessments, formative assessments, summative assessments, we had to identify some of the areas that our students were struggling. And this is one of them. So what are we doing in these areas? What actions are we taking? Well, it's centered on the interactive reading notebooks. We've noticed that this is the heart of the reading program. So we want to make sure that through these interactive notebooks, our students are practicing new skills and consistently reflecting on their work. That we're differentiating the mentor text and student responses to those texts, that there is constant class discussion centered around student work, conferences with students, working in small groups, anything that we can do to have that dialogue with students, get them to reflect on their work and talk about new strategies moving forward. Further studies for us, analyzing student work and comprehension skills, constant professional development, whether that's district-wide, whether that's between our middle schools, whether that's in-house, but constantly building out professional development through the reading programs, recognizing different learning styles in our students. Not all of our students learn the same, so we have to learn about our students and make sure that we're differentiating. Maintaining professional discourse and reflecting on our practices as educators, and continuously, you'll hear me say this in the next slide too, but building our data culture, studying data, and looking for trends and patterns. Another goal in reading is developing readers' understanding of informational text features. To expand that, it's strategies such as chunking and modeling and use of graphic organizers, the use of comprehension strategies like close. That's a strategy used by teachers where you basically take a paragraph and you omit words and you allow students to embed their own words, which builds vocabulary. Professional development on disciplinary literacy. We've built this out as part of our professional learning communities. Ms. Efros, you've been a part of some of those before, and we've had our staff really focus on what does literacy look like in every area that we teach, whether that's the phys ed teacher, the art teacher, the band teacher, language arts teacher, social studies, science, it doesn't make a difference. Through disciplinary literacy, how are we building out reading? Also looking at analyzing student work on a consistent basis And the further study for us is supporting students with various comprehension strategies, recognize the different learning styles of our students, maintaining professional discourse around disciplinary literacy, and constantly looking for trends and patterns in student data. So I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer Ostheimer. She's going to talk a little bit more about reading, but how we've built this out into Tier 2 interventions.
Good evening. Developing Tier 2 interventions that meet our students' needs is an ongoing and fluid process, as our students and the supports that they need require change over time. Looking at both informational and narrative text, we have been working in a multitude of ways, including providing students with a variety of high-interest, engaging books that allow them, those of them who are at different reading levels, a wide selection of books on different topics, providing students with authentically diverse literature featuring protagonists who reflect our students' ethnicities, strengthening teachers' use of formative assessment to provide students with actionable feedback throughout the learning process, supporting students in understanding how they are growing as readers and suggesting strategies that they can use to build on that growth, implementing a streamlined, multi-departmental building instructional team process, and moving forward, we will work to meet our goal through using data analysis to identify trends and anticipate supports that would benefit our students, recognizing diverse learners and identifying students' learning styles and their strengths, organizing multiple opportunities for professional discourse, and continuing to include student data and the artifacts that we collected during COVID in our analysis through the ECOL process.
Good evening. I'm going to transition and talk to you a little bit about our math data, and you can see the charts up on the screen are set up in the same way as the reading data that we looked at. So I know Mr. English already talked about the not applicable boxes and what that represents. If you look at that all category, this is the MSTEP data, and you can see those trends over time. And here as well, you can see that as you look from 2016 through 2017, you see a slight decrease during that pandemic year of 2020 to 2021, but we are still over that 5-year track seeing that trend of 67%, and that's meeting that ECOL goal, that target goal we had set for ourselves as a district to maintain our averages despite the pandemic. And we're really proud of our students and our staff who have been working hard to make sure that that stayed in place. And then just like with reading, we want to make sure that we're looking at additional data points in mathematics. So if you go back to when we were still administering NWAA, that is the first line. We then transitioned to FastBridge, and you can see that that begins in fall 2020 and takes us through fall of 2021. And you can see that there that's reflecting an average of 87 or 88%. And again, just like with reading, that puts us on track for our goals in mathematics. And again, those not applicable categories that we're working through with our ability to disaggregate the FastBridge data. We're looking forward to the trends we'll be able to see moving forward. Now that we have that in the fall 2021, we'll be able to track that more efficiently as we move forward with that data available. So in mathematics, our first target goal area is developing skills in reasoning and justifying mathematical solutions. You can see that some of the actions we've taken are the math resources and extensions that allow students to focus on their mathematics learning independently and meet them where they are. Small group instruction and one-on-one conferencing in mathematics and what that looks like in the classroom in terms of math discourse and allowing students to really use some of that math language and use of formative assessments. And then a couple of areas for further study. As Mr. English mentioned, ongoing professional discourse. There's a lot of professional development that's really exciting across the district right now around math discourse, and teachers and students really learning about math language and what it means to justify mathematics, as well as continued monitoring for students using that MTSS structure, which Carey will talk about in just a couple of minutes. Our other target goal area is expanding students' problem-solving skills. So again, you can see some of the actions taken focusing on the language of mathematics and helping students to understand the math problems, to unpack those linguistically and to think about facilitating discussion so that they're using that language to explain the mathematics, and giving students those opportunities to have what we call math talk in their classrooms and really engaging together in that. Couple of areas of further study. Again, that professional discourse among our staff and educators combined with professional development that they're working on, as well as some specific strategies that teachers are using in their classrooms to really elevate math talk between students and give them an opportunity to problem solve and demonstrate that thinking really visibly with one another. So I'm going to pass it over now to Karen Carey, who's going to talk about our Tier 2 intervention specifically.
Thank you, Jen. So our target goal is to determine the area of focus needed for Tier 2 interventions in problem solving and reasoning in mathematics specifically. To work toward meeting this goal, we, as a team, collectively, are going to gather together teachers, learning specialists, interventionists, and any other support staff needed so that we can provide the data for formative assessments. We can monitor and adjust interventions to meet all of our students' needs. We also have district-level learning walks, which have been a really neat opportunity for us to have everyone in the district involved in seeing what's going on within BHMS. And differentiated instruction, as well as the analysis of data to monitor the progress that we are moving forward through. In order to continue all of this work and further our studies, the teachers and support staff will reflect on their own practices, and they will continue to grow. We will recognize diverse, different, and individual learning styles, and we will promote inclusive learning while using the multi-tiered system of supports and interventions. We will use these interventions to help us identify patterns, successes, challenges, all within our data, by continuing to analyze those that we have seen during the COVID years. I thank you, and I'm going to turn this back over to Randy English to celebrate our points of pride here at BHMS.
All right, thank you. So we talked about our reading goals, we talked about our math goals, but our points of pride right now are going to be centered on SEL, or social emotional learning goals. Whenever I get a microphone, I always try and thank people as often as possible. So I want to thank Heather, I want to thank Lena, and I want to thank Z for the amazing job that they've done as part of our Student Senate. They came into our building. We've been meeting with them on a consistent basis. They did a marvelous job facilitating conversations with kids. And it is definitely one of our points of pride. It's the last star. I want to make it the first star. About a year ago, through the work of Donna Michaels and Kathy Janelle, we started a student ambassador group, and this was getting student voice into our building. And we thought that this would be a natural blend with our Student Senate. So we've merged what we started work-wise a year ago with the Student Senate, and it has taken off. You could hear the passion in their voice. You should have seen our students. It was great to see them working together. So it is a huge point of pride for us. We have restructured our MTSS, BIT, Building Instructional Team, procedures and process, and how we're looking at data and how we're discussing the strengths and areas of weakness that we need to build out for all student success. Lancer time, as that is built out at East Hills and West Hills, we have daily lessons around social and emotional learning, and the staff at BHMS are doing weekly check-ins with students, surveys, just getting a good gauge on where students are emotionally. Learning walks, whether that be through social emotional learning and a focus there, literacy or math, we have educators going into classrooms and learning from their great practices. And we put the focus on SEL, literacy, and math in order to build out the work that we're doing. So a rotation of educators getting into educators' classrooms and learning from one another. Lancer Leadership, the Upstander OK to Say program, we've had that for years at BHMS, but it was always built out through 6th grade. And this year we have moved that into conversations for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students. Our 5th grade students are getting that as well, but our marvelous counselors, Anthony Flaveris and Laura Kessner, have taken the work and they've created presentations to work with our 5th grade students on an elementary level. So a lot of credit to them. And then conversations that are constantly being built out with our students. We've named some of them tonight, but our affinity groups and clubs, whether it's Me to We, Be the Change, whether it's Black Student Alliance, any of the affinity groups and clubs that we have, it's constantly getting student voice and the temperature of our school through students. So that is our presentation. Thank you.